Hello, everyone. Good afternoon here in New York City. My name is Michael Schwartz. I'm the Experiential Director of Better Spaces. And today we have foam rolling for mobility and posture with Dr. Paul. I've got my foam roller ready. I need this, so I'm excited. So if this is your first time with Dr. Paul Kachowa received his doctorate of physical therapy from Mercy College. He also has a BS in exercise physiology from Rutgers. His treatment philosophy is move better, feel better, and play better. You can also follow Dr. Paul at Facebook, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. That's at PAR5PT, or you can go to par5pt.com. We'll take any final questions at the end. Otherwise, enjoy the next 20 minutes or so. Take it away, Dr. Paul.
Hello, welcome everybody, Better Spaces family. My name is Dr. Paul Kachowa. I'm a physical therapist here located in Randolph, New Jersey. And today I'm going to talk to you about how to use a foam roller properly. They are ubiquitous. You can find them anywhere. I mean, just last month I went to Barnes & Noble's and I saw one in Barnes & Noble. So you could definitely get them anywhere. But not that many people know how to use them. I mean, using them properly and all that stuff. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So let me get my slide deck up here. Going to transition into here and we'll talk about how to use a foam roller. So let's see if I got this all up and going. We're going to start off with my usual disclaimer. My usual disclaimer here is that because I'm a physical therapist as a medical professional, I have to say that this is not physical therapy. This is common general knowledge for the general population. But if you are dealing with a specific ailment, pain, ache, or injury, please consult a medical professional before you start doing any of the things that we're going to be talking about today. So with that out of the way, we're going to talk about self-myofascial release. That's basically what you do, the main focus, when you use a foam roller. Self-myofascial release. And what is myofascia? What is this stuff that we're talking about, right? So let's see if this pops up. Yes, it's a video of a graphic of what fascia is. Fascia is this connective tissue sweater-like type of material that fits and fills in all the spaces. It gives our muscles and our bodies its shape. All right, and when we move, it moves, and it has a tendency to get sticky and limited with mobility if we don't move. So let's take a closer look at this in another video I've got. Hit this button there. There we go. This is a video, if I can get this to play, of real live fascia. Doctors in France, they just take they took an endoscope and stuck this beneath the skin, and we're looking at this really well hydrated spider web of tissue that's inside our body. It connects the superficial skin to the subdermal layers, the stuff that's underneath the skin, and then the muscles are connected with this, and then muscles that are held together by fascia end in a tendon, which is connected to the bone, which connects to the bone. And all that is basically fascia, and all that stuff makes up our body. If our body didn't have fascia, if muscle didn't have fascia, it would just look like hamburger meat. So happy 4th of July for everyone in America. If you've grilled hamburgers this weekend, that's meat without the fascia. When you heat it up, you degrade a lot of that connective tissue, and that's why it's edible. Anyway, let's move on. This is basically how our body functions, this alternating pattern of movement, mobility, and stability. If you've seen videos of mine before, that's basically how our body functions. And we want to be able to move things that are supposed to be mobile and keep things stable that are supposed to be stable. So a lot of times if we have pain or injury in a specific body part, let's just say like your low back hurts, doesn't necessarily mean that that is where the problem is or that's where the cause is. Sometimes, you know, pain tells us that there's something wrong. It's a signal from our body, but it doesn't tell us where that pain is. That pain can be originating, the cause may be originating from somewhere else. Even though your back hurts, it might be something wrong with your pelvis, your hip, or your mid-back. We're going to talk about how we can address some of those issues today. All right, so the first thing that we're going to look at is foam rolling for self-myofascial release, all right? To improve mobility. We want to get all those surfaces in our body to slide, you know, sliding one layer on top of another. If things don't slide, we can't move, we don't have a lot of flexibility. If we're thinking about just stretching, right? We're just stretching, like doing a hamstring stretch, sticking our leg out, trying to hold that position. That's basically taking point A from point B and separating those 2 points. That doesn't necessarily mean that addresses what's going on from a three-dimensional standpoint. We want to make things move and also lengthen. And we're going to touch on how to make muscles relax when we mobilize them. The other thing that we're going to talk about is foam rolling and how to use a foam roller for exercises and drills. You know, there's some little things that we're going to talk about to help improve posture, stretch you out, and also strengthen your body, and you can use the foam roller for that as well. All right, so I think we're going to be covering foam roller for your legs, your mid-back, and your lats. That's the latissimus muscle, which runs from the front part of your shoulder here, dives down underneath the shoulder, armpit, and then goes into your lower back. So that's the lat muscle. We're going to specifically talk about that because that covers a lot and tends to be tight in a lot of the clients that I've been seeing recently. And then we're going to look into, you know, the posture, stretching, and leg strengthening. So let me set this up here. I'm going to move this around, take my picture here, bring it back to this, and then we're going to transition to our two-shot. So here we are. We've got the foam roller on the ground. You've got me in this other camera here. We're going to talk about first the calves. All right. So this is pretty simple. You know, you have your foam roller. You're going to get down on the ground, and a couple things to do here. Let me get into the shot here. We're going to just get your calf on here. And, you know, you think about the calf muscle, there's two muscles in there, the gastrocnemius and the soleus, and you want to be able to kind of move that around. So the first thing that people usually do is that they just kind of lift up their butt and they kind of move their leg up and down like that, right? And they kind of go back and forth. Now, that's one way to do it. And I think that it's a good beginning stage of trying to start with myofascial release, kind of moving up and down. And because the muscle is three-dimensional, it covers the whole back part of your calf, we want to make sure that we cover the outside, turning the toe out, and the inside, turning the toe in. Now, once we find a spot that might be tender, what we have to do is get more pressure on there. And from this position, I can apply more pressure by just crossing my leg over that. And then once I cross over my leg, I've got the weight of my other leg pushing down on that little trigger point, and then I could move my ankle up and down. So here, I'm stretching and moving and sliding that muscle on the pressure of the foam roller, and that helps with releasing that fascia, all right? So the basics is that first we have active, just rolling around, just kind of going up and down, trying to search for areas that might be tight or tender, and then we go with finding a spot that's tight. All right, there's a trigger point. I'm going to add more pressure and then start to move the muscle. All right, second piece, if we go upstream here, go to the hamstring, we could do the same thing for that. Now you can notice here that even though this thing is long, I'm only using the end here to get one leg at a time. That way I can really concentrate on the muscle. And again, I can go from the back, I can go onto the side, gradually shifting my weight and rolling to one end, maybe put this foot out in front. And the more weight I push on there, and I can kind of shear that muscle by rolling side to side and pinning down that muscle and creating a shearing effect. All right, so it's a small motion once you find that trigger point. So you go active, just kind of rolling out and finding that trigger point. And then once you find it, we're going to try and shear that by either creating motion with the limb as I bend and straighten my knee, or a little bit of an oscillation, sliding my body forward and backward to create that shear. All right, and then I can move on to the front part of my leg. I'm going to turn this way so you can see this. I can get to the calf, the quad muscle, so I'm from the back. I can roll gradually to the front. Once I find a trigger point, I can lay on there and then start to bend the knee and actively move that muscle as I go through that trigger point. Now, anytime that you find a spot that's tender, that's tight, we want to be able to hold that and then do that for 2 minutes at least for each body part that you feel tight. And one thing is that, especially if you're new to foam rolling, some of this may be extra uncomfortable. We never want to say painful because the level of discomfort varies from person to person. so that when we get onto a trigger point, it should not be sharp or stabby, and it should never linger after we get done. All right, and the pain or discomfort should go away immediately if I relieve the pressure. The other part here is we're going to go into the lat muscle, and that again runs underneath the armpit. And I can just lay down my side here, and then kind of pin that foam roller onto the side of my shoulder blade, and then kind of roll forward or backward or up and down. And I can go up and down again through that lat insertion area. That tends to be tight, especially for people who never put their hands over their head fully. And what we're going to do is, again, same thing, go up and down, try and find a trigger point, and then shear my body. I can go forward and backward, small motions, or again, move that limb overhead. Now it's best, because of the shoulder position or the shoulder joint, to do this with the palm up. That opens up the shoulder joints a little bit and creates a little bit more space in the joint itself, and reduces any impingement or pinching in the shoulder. And again, you can combine this. So I mentioned before, if you find a spot that's tender and painful, we want to try and calm down the muscle and allow that muscle to release and lengthen and kind of soften up under the pressure and the moving that we're doing here. So one way to do that is go through a breathing technique, in and out through the nose. So you're going to breathe in and out through the nose, inhale 2 seconds, and then exhale for 4 seconds. So if I find a trigger point that's really tough, I'm going to stay there. I'm going to breathe in through the nose 2 seconds, and then out, exhale 4 seconds. That long exhale, and you could pause at the top or bottom of your breath depending upon how you feel, how you feel comfortable. But that long exhale helps to relax that muscle, taps into your parasympathetic nervous system, and allows that muscle to relax. All right. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to roll onto the back. Now, I don't like rolling the lower back with the foam roll. It's just way too much pressure and way too much difficulty, especially if you don't have a lot of abdominal control. But I do like using the foam roller for the mid-back. And the mid-back is basically the thoracic spine with the ribs. We want to just get the arms and shoulder blades out of the way by crossing them in front of us. And then we're going to go up and down. And from here, again, you might find some trigger points. You might get a little pops and cracks here. You could support your head with your arms. And then what we can do also, and this is a big thing that I love to do with a lot of my clients that sit for prolonged periods of time throughout the day, is to go through a mid-back opener, like a mobilization. We're going to start on the lower ribs, keep the abdominals on so that we don't hyperextend your lower back. We're going to put the hands behind the head with the elbows forward. And from here, we're going to extend backwards, trying to get your head, shoulders back to the ground without hyperextending the lower back. So it's like a little bit of a seesaw. I'm going to scooch down and then repeat that again. You're going to do that several times as you make your way up your back. So you're basically trying to undo that forward flex position as you go through this repeatedly. Again, as you go back, try to keep that mobility, that mobilization isolated to your thoracic spine, so we don't want the abdominals to turn off, and then your back to hyperextend. So if I just go back like this, that's all lower back. If I keep this nice and tight, pull my ribs down, and then I go back, then this is all I have through my mid-back, so that we isolate and make sure that this is as specific as possible. Because again, our body goes through these goes through movements and seeks the path of least resistance. So wherever you're tight, it's not going to want to move, and wherever you're loose, it's going to try and move through that. So that tight spots are going to remain tight, but you got to isolate your movement to make sure that you mobilize the right spot. All right. So now we're going to get into the next thing. Let me just advance this slide. So I got my notes here. One thing that we're going to go is through a pec opener. So again, once we get that thoracic spine to extend, we can go into stretching out the pecs, the front part of your shoulders, and the chest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lie this down vertically, and I am going to put this sort of like that, I guess. I'm going to sit right on the end. And then from here, I'm going to lie back. My spine is going to be right along the foam roller. My head is supported. My knees are going to be bent. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put my hands down, palms facing the ceiling. All right. So from here, it might feel like a stretch. It might not feel like anything, right? But the main thing is to kind of focus on relaxing. And I like to have people do this position for maybe sometimes even for 3 to 5 minutes. how much you need, depends upon how tight you feel. And then what you can do to get more of a stretch is to kind of take your hands, palms up again to the ceiling, and then bring your arms out to the side. And then from here, if I go at 90 degrees, shoulder height, I'm going to feel a little tight. And then as I go up higher than shoulder height, that again gets me a little bit more stretch. But again, because we're stretching out this anterior line here from the pec muscle and the shoulder, all of that is attached to the ribs. It may cause my lower back to hyperextend. So I want to make sure that I keep my knees bent and I keep my back flat. And as I get into this position, again, I have a more specific stretch to the front part of my chest. And then, adjust the hand position so that, we don't get any hyperextension from your lower back, and make this stretch as specific as possible to the pec and the shoulders. Now, if you're super tight in this front pec and neck area, you might feel some numbness or tingling in your hands. That's basically this pec minor muscle where the brachial plexus nerve bundle comes out from your neck and goes into your arms. If you're getting that, don't stay there. Back your arms down. Get into a position that you feel no tingling, but a good stretch. So you have to kind of pick out where you're gonna kind of put your hands, and then hang out for here. Work on your breathing, relax, do a little bit of meditation. You'll be able to recharge and take the rest of your day after that. Now, the next one is going to be over the head to stretch out this the lat some more and the shoulder. I could get into what we call a child's pose, where I'm just kind of rocking my hips down to my heels. If you can't do that because of any knee issues, you can kind of stick a pillow or something else under there to pad that up. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get down into this position. I'm going to take both hands, I'm going to roll this forward, and that should give me a little bit of a stretch into the back here. Now, I could do this both arms, or I can do this single to kind of really focus on one arm. If I focus on one arm, I'm just going to lay my hand right in between my knees so I can support my back. And I'm going to take this other hand palm up or in this neutral position, and I'm going to roll this forward. And as I roll forward, I should feel this big stretch going on into my shoulder. We can kind of go do that repeatedly, just like what we did with the mid-back mobilization as well. And we can repeat that. And you can also do some rotation as well. I mean, this is overhead, and then if we want to rotate, say for example, for tennis players or for golfers that need a lot of rotation, we can kind of take this out to the side, take one hand out. This is our classic child's pose position, our stretch. I could do a thread the needle with the foam roller to kind of just help rotate my back, my mid-back into that position. So we could do that a couple times, and then repeat that on both sides. Palm up, so that way we can support or create the least amount of stress on the shoulder that's moving. All right. The last thing I want to do is just working on hip strength or leg strengthening with this. And one of the exercises that I like to give a lot of my clients is called this RDL, or Romanian deadlift. The Romanian deadlift is sort of like a weight picking up off the ground. And if I grab this weight over here, where we pick it up off the ground with a straight leg posture, or straightish legs with the back straight. So it's basically from here and then hinging at the hips and then putting that weight down and then coming up from there. I like doing that in a single leg position where we work on balance as well as hip strength, right? A lot of times this is a very difficult maneuver for a lot of people that don't have a lot of balance or strength on one side. So I use the foam roller to help. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of plant that between the foot and the hand, make my arm straight, and then creating that tension. So I hold that foam roller and I bring that leg up and back. Okay, so this is assisting my balance, because when the leg goes back, that counteracts the weight of my trunk going forward, and I'm bending this knee that is on the ground a little bit. So I'll show you from the other side. I'm basically keeping my back straight, hinging at the hip, and letting this other leg go back straight, holding this foam roller in between my foot and my hand. So I do this a couple times on both sides. And this is a good hip strengthener, especially for people who need to work on a lot of rotation or explosive movements. All right, so there's a lot of different ways to use your foam roller. Let's get back to the single shot here. And those are just a couple. And I hope that this helped you out today to understand why you have one of these or why you should get one of these. Try and make this part of a standard toolbox that you're going to have at home to maintain your body and help yourself to stay mobile as we age. All right. Any questions out there?
Thank you, Dr. Paul. Let's see. So we've got our first question from Chelsea. She says, any suggestions for rolling back of legs with sensitive wrists?
All right. So I'm going to transition back into my shot here. So what we're talking about is getting into the back of the leg and not be able to get into this position here, right? So you can't extend your wrists. You've got a couple options. Either one, I can go from the elbow and do that, right? Maybe that's too much on my shoulder. I can do fist, maybe. Or if I want to get the back of the leg and I totally want to take out my arms, I could do this in a sitting position. So I've got my little seat here. I've got a ball. Let me show you this thing right here. So this is a hypersphere massage ball. And what a tennis ball, lacrosse ball can do. And you basically sit down, and if we want to get the back of the leg, I'm going to put this underneath there. And again, the harder surface that you sit on, the more aggressive that this is going to be. So if this is a soft couch, I have to apply a lot of pressure to kind of mobilize that leg, but it's the same principle. I'm going to move that around, move my leg around, find a spot that's tight. Find a spot that might be a little bit uncomfortable. Once I find that, I'm going to go through my breathing pattern of nasal breathing, 2 seconds in, 2 seconds out, apply as much pressure as I can, and then see if I can elongate or move that muscle on that pressure to help mobilize that muscle. So I release the fascia. All right, hopefully that helped.
Yes.
Get back in here.
Another question, which I was actually going to ask as well, which is from Vicky. She says she finds it difficult to judge how much discomfort and pain she should tolerate when rolling. I understand the need to work on the fascia, but ouch, ouch, ouch.
Yeah.
You know, it's similar to the question I had, which was, there was a moment when we were doing the shoulder exercises just now, and I felt a little bit of tenderness that was unexpected. What is happening when I feel that tenderness, and sort of what's the best, way to move forward on it?
So the way I would say is it's like a yellow light. You proceed with caution. Anytime that anything's like sharp or stabby, that's definitely a red light. We don't want to go there. If it's your first time doing any type of soft tissue mobilization or self-myofascial release, there's going to be some discomfort. But that discomfort should be dull and achy and reduce the less pressure you put on that area. If you put a lot of pressure, it's going to hurt. Less pressure, it's not going to be as bad. So you have to kind of taper how much weight and pressure you apply through your implement. And then if you work on the breathing, does the breathing reduce that sensitivity, reduce that pain? And the bottom line is that nothing should feel worse after you get done. So you go for about a minute, 30 seconds to a minute to trial, and then you stand up. Does it feel worse? Can I move more? And then if you can, then you progress your time, your treatment time, up to 2 minutes per body part.